Let's see if I am on. Make sure I can see everybody. Yep. Make sure I can see everybody. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I am late again. I am so late. It is, it can't be helped. It's just really amazing, the breaking news, and I can't produce it fast enough because it's coming in so quick. So let's start. 1,712 days since Richard was systematically, internally targeted and murdered for reporting criminal trafficking within Fort Bliss, cartel tied trafficking, cartelled corruption, cartel tied inside of the military on Fort Bliss, and more and more is coming out. Um, so, uh, you know, uh, Also trying to keep up with the news cycle, you see Open Checkbook Joe Open Checkbook Spencer, that is absolutely the most corrupt defense attorney in El Paso. Um, just a proven liar, an absolutely proven liar, is being featured in El Paso, no, in New York Times, in the New York Times. Um, President Trump must be really hurting their wallets because, um, that's what they respond to, right? That is the whole reason why Joe Spencer was appointed to public defender of Patrick Crusius. He didn't take on the case. Remember, we have the audios that he wasn't going to do anything for nickels and dimes. And this is the other thing too, that from the audio about the nickels and dimes audio, that it takes a while. You have to listen to it over and over again, and then that has to sink in a little bit, and you have to kind of, what in the world was going on? Because this Patrick Crusius applied on August 4th already, the very next day, right? Um, and it was totally chaotic. Um, August 3rd, 2019, August 4th of 2019, he had already applied. Now you can, if you're in that system, please let me know if that's normal, because his application went in and was approved on August 4th. I mean, they did it lickety split, without checking his history, his job at Cinemark, his apartment there in San Antonio, his family home in Dallas, his family there in the El Paso Federal Courthouse, his connections, which demonstrate all his expenditures, absolutely demonstrate that the application was fraudulent, right? He had listed 000 income, 000 expenditures for this application for appointed counsel, right? So for a public defender, I need a lawyer. I have no money. I have no money. I have no expenditures, even though I bought this weapon and these bullets and these electronic, did he buy the electronic? Um, military grade, I guess, I don't know. Tactical, right? Tactical was the word. Tactical, electronic earmuffs, right? What about his car? What about his insurance? What about his internet? What about his computer that he supposedly spent so much time on, right? What about his phone? What about the gas? What about his food? He had zero expenditures. What about his clean clothes and his clean shoes. You know, his training, where did his training come from? He had to have training if in 1 to 2 minutes with a kind of a not dependable rifle, right? He says it's not dependable. Everyone says it's not dependable, this whatever this weapon is, right? The Wasock 10 or whatever that's called. Um because it jams up, when you're shooting quick, because there's one shot per trigger, right? One shot per trigger pull, right? That it would overheat, that it would, whatever. Um, w- where he had to have taken some kind of training, right? The expenditures for all of that. Uh, you know, um, where is his medication? He absolutely, with all of his medical health history, being autistic, being schizoaffective, all this stuff. I mean, he has mental health conditions, right? And that, of course, messes with his motor skills, right? Um, where is his um, rants or whatever, his violence that they say that it caused? Where is all of that documentation and that? And the other thing too is uh his mother was supposedly alerted to this. His job, Cinemar, was supposedly alerted to this. According to this New York Times interview, right? It absolutely, uh, the doctors were alerted to this, right? Um, and and so they have an obligation. They have an obligation to say something. Um, and Joe Spencer says this is just they just walked in. I took this case. He didn't take this case. He was appointed to this case. So who appointed him? And, how is it that a public defender can say, I don't want nickels and dimes, I want an open checkbook? I want an open checkbook where the taxpayers have to pay me, and nobody can look at it, right? Nobody can look at it, right? It has to be sealed, a sealed deal. And then, okay, then I'll come in and I'll delay, and just cash in on all the delays. And all that needs to be scrutinized, because he's absolutely a proven liar because he didn't take on the case. He's a public defender and he was appointed. This is an appointed um, position. And, and then to get that kind of open checkbook where the taxpayers have to, you know, uh, pay for this disaster of a defense attorney. And then, of course, all the conflicts with it, meaning Patrick Crucius's family is in the federal courthouse. Michael Mayella, the manager for Judge Guadarrama, has access to all these cases, organizes all the actions in this case for the federal courthouse, and that one's going first. And he's so conflicted because his daughter is married to Patrick Crucius's brother, right? His daughter is married to the brother. And then Michael Maiella's son, Michael Maiella Jr., who is a cybersecurity expert and hacker. That's not my term. That's his term, right? He won the award for hacking and being so fast and all of this. And he is working in the DA's office with Jaime Esparza and with James Montoya, Mr. 2028 stamp. Um, and then he's working in there with Jaime Esparza, who has a conflict of interest of his own that Joe Spencer just kind of overlooks because, oh, your sister was there at the Walmart. This is personal to you. But, we have an open checkbook. We have an open checkbook. So let's just all, look the other way and let's all cash in and, we'll delay. Um, I mean, John Bash can handle it, the federal court until Jaime steps in, right? It's it just all of it stinks. It stinks because then you have Michael Mayella Jr. in the DA's office. This, with access to the case, with access to cases like Richard's case, right? He has access to these cases. And not only that, he's in the El Paso FBI field office also. I mean, wow, he has some connections. And not only that, if that's not enough, he's in the Walmart security. He's in the Walmart security. What are you talking? Where are the video? Where is the CCTV footage, right? Where is, I mean, it is absolutely, and then to have the cartel ties, right? All the cartel ties. That is just so obvious. So this is, Joe Spencer totally conflicted out. He's appointed with this demanding an open checkbook, right? And getting his way. Why? Why? What's really his objective? Because it wasn't to defend Patrick Crusius, because Patrick Crusius, it was the shh. Let's not talk about the Mayellas, the Patrick Crusius's family in the federal courthouse. Shh. Let's not talk about that Patrick Crusius has this long history of autism and was diagnosed at age 16, I believe they said, with this schizoaffective disorder, right? Mental health conditions, as Judge Guadarrama called them. Let's not say that because then, it'll come out that I've never, that Joe Spencer never ordered a mental health evaluation for competency, in the case, which is a normal. It has to be, especially in a death penalty case. He's never ordered a mental health evaluation on Patrick Crusius for competency, right? Which would absolutely tell you about his motor coordination. Because if you've ever taught somebody with this kind of mental health, conditions, you absolutely know that their motor coordinations are off. I mean, I don't want to talk about my experiences where they're like 9 years old wearing diapers. They don't talk until they're six, and and if they do, if they get verbal, right? If they get verbal, and in Patrick Crusius's case, he did get a verbal, but Joe Spencer and these audios that we have confirm that he didn't get verbal until about 6 years old. 6 years old, verbal. So, and then, others, oh, he couldn't tie his shoe. Oh, he's, getting frustrated. He can't pass kindergarten. Oh, he, is hitting his head on the sidewalk in special education. He was special education. He couldn't even really participate there. He'd get frustrated and start hitting himself. So he's under medication. Uh, I am, I'm telling you, he really needs to have a test on his motor skills because he would have to have motor skills, ace motor skills like military trained, sharpshooter, um, motor skills in order to, in 1 minute, with 30 rounds pull this off, right? And then they don't say that. They don't say it was it because, there's only one clip in the picture. So at the most, he had 30. But what if there's less? What if there's like 20? What if there's just 17 rounds in that clip, right? Because you had 23 that were killed and 22 that were injured. How many rounds would that take? It would take a lot more than 30 rounds. That's for sure. That's for sure. And to have that come out of that weapon so fast, with the history of that weapon jamming and overheating, I mean, you know, it none of it makes sense. And then to keep it quiet that he's a white supremacist or a racist, right? That he wasn't a racist, that he wasn't a white supremacist. You don't even have to keep that a secret. All I did was watch the videos, right? Read the stories, and there he is surrendering, very clean clothes. There's not like a SWAT team. I mean, they are telling us that he just pulled off the most amazing, um, like high military operation alone, right? That ended up killing 23 people, injuring 22 more, and just walked away with clean shoes, clean pants, clean shirt, no sweat, no throw up, even though he's disgusted by blood, nothing. And this is at close range. Remember, they're telling us it was with such hate-filled rage, it was close range and everything like that, which is all a lie, because all you do is look at the videos and you see when he's surrendering the second time, right? You got the video of him surrendering the second time, and it's to a Hispanic DPS officer. A Hispanic officer. He's not like rage filled. He's like, oh, yeah, I did it. Yeah, here I am. I did it. I did it. My hands are up and whatever. I'm so compliant because I'm all clean. I'm all clean. And, am I at the right place this time? Am I at the right place? Are you the right person to surrender to? Because I was just shooed away, telling me to leave when I tried to surrender the first time. I mean, is this the right place now? And, because I can always go back into my vehicle, or maybe someone is going to come pick me up in that white van and drive me around where I need to be, if I can't do it myself. The whole narrative is so, um, it's messed up. It is so messed up, right? He's not a racist. He's not a white supremacist. He, doesn't have any kind of history of being able to pull something like this off. He has no evidence that he pulled it off. I mean, they didn't even bag his hands for gunpowder, y'all. I mean, he didn't even read him his rights, right? And yet they're very efficient on the application for appointed counsel to give Joe Spencer an open checkbook. That they're very good at. That they're very fast at, right? And I bet writing those checks that come from taxpayers' pockets, where they are ending small businesses. Remember 2020 and 2021? I mean, they were just ruining people's lives with their mandates and it was just horrible. Yet, he's getting an open checkbook. He's getting an open checkbook. No wonder we're $37 trillion in debt. And this is, and Mayelas are in there. Are they, I don't know. He's cyber. Did he have access to Richard's Bitcoin? What kind of, and I'm going ahead of myself because, here we are in 2019, but in July of 2019 and before that, okay, President Trump was all over those cartel, okay? And he does it with executive orders, right? Because he's the chief law enforcer in the country. He is the commander in chief. He is the magistrate, the chief magistrate of this country. You know, when you're a president, you have a lot of power. You have a lot of power. And he absolutely in 2017, 2018, 2019, because, you know, this New York Times article, Joe Spencer's words is like, you know, he changes all the time. So you know that he's lying because he can't stick with the same story. Um, but he is now playing the same playbook. You know, I love football. I love football. Okay. And I know you got a playbook and you know you got the players that have to memorize the plays. They have to memorize the plays. Well, you know, he's pulling out one of the plays that they did right after the Walmart case. And that is to say racist white supremacy, Trump, 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 racist white supremacy, Trump, Trump, Trump. You know, that's what they're doing, right? Well, we've learned that play. We've learned that play, and we know we've learned how to uh, say, "Get behind me, Satan! Get behind me, Satan!" Right? We know how to block it. It is it is so ridiculous that you know the New York Times would risk I mean, featuring Joe Spencer? They're risking their name, their reputation with Joe Spencer, Joe Open Checkbook Spencer? I mean, is the most corrupt defense lawyer in El Paso who doesn't have many plays in the playbook. His plays are open checkbook. Let's steal from the American people. Let's extort from them. Let's lie. And let's blame everything on racist white supremacy and Trump. Racist white supremacy and Trump. Are you kidding me? When Trump was, you know, the problem with El Paso is not racism, it's corruption. It's the corruption, right? That's the problem, the cartel tied corruption that was infiltrating. And Richard was telling us it's really bad. It's really bad. And so, you know, go doing all of this and sharing all of this with everybody and then getting the feedback. It makes you aware, oh my gosh, we know that there were audits going on. We know that they had descended the audits and the investigators had descended on Fort Bliss and were investigating. We know that because we were told that. Because in our many, many, many hours and hours and hours of conversation with Marlon Soto, the CID agent that's dirty, the dirty CID agent, um, with him and with Brigadier General Stewart and others telling us that they were auditing Fort Bliss. They were investigating Fort Bliss, and it was bad. And it was so bad that now we understand why they were all shaking. They, and I have hours and hours. I don't know how many live streams that I've done, that I've recorded, where I've talked about how insane it was on Fort Bliss because the soldiers were so afraid. They were shaking. We're talking about the command sergeant major, Jake Jakovich, shaking. I mean, really shaking, looking like, you know, eyes like deers into headlights, right? They were shaking. They were scared. You had PP McGee, the JAG, absolutely controlling Bernabe, totally controlling. Because they were afraid. Bernabe had no wiggle room. They were trying to control this. And I've absolutely looking in their eyes, not that all of the standard operating procedures, not the sealing of Richard's case, the hiding of information, they're so tight on the information, the lack of evidence at the beginning. Um, and you could just, them not even calling us, right? Not even calling us, not even contacting us at all. And then the retaliation, right? The way they responded, the retaliation was so evident that they were under investigation, they were under audit, and now we're getting feedback that says that was happening in July of 2019 because of Richard's reports, because of other people's reports, but also because of Richard's reports. Richard, and um, Richard's reports were constant. There was, and our information, and please let me know if you were there. But our information that we're getting is that there were about 160 ICE agents descending on Fort Bliss, in the El Paso area, on that area, because of what Richard was reporting. Because of what? So this is the month before the Walmart mass shooting. And Joe Spencer, with all his conflicts, right? With Jaime Esparza conflict, Mr. My sister was in the Walmart. It's personal to me, but I want to stay on the case because, hey, the application got approved for open checkbook. Taxpayers have to spill it out. Wow, we're going to write some checks and we can go to Las Vegas. We can go to Las Vegas and have a really good time because the case is going to be delayed, right? It's going to be delayed. So, yeah, this is uh, the conflicts with the Mayellas, the conflicts, hey, Patrick Crucius's family, are you in the DA's office with access and to the computers, and your family member is a computer cybersecurity hacker, right? And oh yeah, he gets access into the FBI, and oh yeah, he has access to Walmart security. Wowzer, wowzer, good for you, Patrick Crucius, right? I mean the absolute, exactly, thank you, Olga, thank you. The absolute corruption in all of this is corroborates what we have been living for 4 years, the corruption in Richard's case. And, every day Richard looks more and more and more heroic, every day. I'm just, can you imagine uh, finding out your son is reporting, risking everything, reporting this absolute cartel-tied corruption, and the response, because of what he's reporting, the response is so big, 160 ICE agents. No wonder there's people that like this kind of corruption and everything like that, not liking ICE, right? They're not liking ICE because they like the corruption, right? They want hands off of the corruption. They want hands off of the trafficking, the criminal trafficking, hands off of all the contracts, right? The contracts that come with the criminal trafficking, the hands off all of the uh, I want to say the terrible sex cult crimes, the sex cult crimes. We want absolute immunity from any kind of accountability for our sex cult crimes, for our criminal trafficking, for our illegal border crossings. And this is the thing too. They, in this article that I was reading with Joe Spencer, is that they're like talking about due process, I guess, for individuals that are illegally in this country. Okay. This needs to be made very, very clear. You do not have the same rights as the people that are legally in this country if you are illegally in this country. Okay? You do not have the same rights of like I have to hear your case before I export you. If you're illegally in this country, you can be taken out of this country immediately. You don't have the same constitution. Those constitutional rights are for people that obey the law and have come to this country legally. Legally. That's that law is preserved for those individuals. And then if you are a citizen of the country, you have even more rights. Okay? So you can be legally in this country, but your rights are limited. You cannot vote, or if you're a felon, your rights are limited. When you're illegal or you have some kind of record, your rights are limited. Well, if you're illegal, you don't have the right. You have to go. If you're in the country illegally. If you're legal, like my son-in-law when he came over here with his green card, I wish he had a gold card. I love those gold cards. If he had when he came over with his green card, he still couldn't vote. His rights were limited. And that's okay, because then he needs to learn the country, right? He needs to learn the country. He needs to learn the politics of the country. He needs to learn how this country runs very different compared to South Korea. When I was in Germany and Ireland, living there legally, I didn't vote because those countries run differently. I didn't know, I mean, I do know a little bit of the politics now because I lived there for so long, but it takes a while to learn all that, to understand the laws and the culture before you can be uh, I guess, a well-informed voter. And every voter should be well-informed. You shouldn't vote from your hip. So this is really, really important because the strategy and the play that Joe Spencer is using right now is election interference because he's lying. President Trump was not the cause. President Trump's actions were because the corruption was so big, and it was hurting people in this country, and it was taking advantage of this country and of the economy of this country. And how do I know that? Because we went to the White House archives. You can go to the White House archives and you can read them, and I posted it up, and you can see what his executive orders were. And they weren't racist. They were about drying up the organized crime right? Those that are involved, criminal tied activities, the organized crime that was happening in the cities, in the towns, in the areas along the border. That's what he was doing. And then March 2021, what happens? They build this enormous emergency intake center on Fort Bliss using taxpayers' money to traffic 10,000 children at a time that have been taken. They're not unaccompanied. They were accompanied all the time. They were taken, ripped from their families. And, you know, however, they got them away from their families. And they were trafficked through our border that was all the EOs that were to dry that mess up, to stop that kind of trafficking, were dismissed. And they used American taxpayers' money to exploit humans. That's what they did. Because you see, when you come in illegally, you are so ripe for to be exploited. They will misuse you. They were, you see that with Leilani Hart in her affidavit, right? In her affidavit, she's like, "Oh, I can't tell about the incest in our family. I can't tell about this child that was the worst type of crimes against children in my master bedroom by multiple members of my household because they're going to reveal my immigration status." Really? Really? Yeah, what kind of fraud is there? Because for some reason, she gets 100% disability, like over $5,000 a month. She doesn't want to lose that. She must have some kind of immigration problem, right? She needs to absolutely be arrested. But see, it goes to that a point. It goes to that point where you're exploited. And I don't want to make a victim out of her. I don't believe she's a victim. She's had plenty of chances. Matter of fact, she's done more and more harm as time has gone by because her criminal record goes back before Richard was even born. She has a criminal record in Hawaii. Um, and of course on Fort Bliss and of course in El Paso. And I think in Colorado. Um, it is really uh, a failure. If they would have nipped it in the bud right away. Um, she's a convicted criminal, and this whole thing, how they exploit people, how they don't do their jobs. I'm just saying, this is like, where's our services that we play? We're just getting robbed. This is deprivation of honest services. That's what this is. They're not doing their jobs. And Joe Spencer is becoming totally political, being paid with an open checkbook. being totally political to affect elections, be it any election. Because, you know, if you're saying Trump, 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 then anyone Trump endorses or whatever, you see, this is so political. The entire country was built by immigrants, technically, in my opinion. Native Americans are the only individuals that are not immigrants. Well, I think they are because, of course, I'm a Christian. I think that, we all started in one place and had to go out. But, and you can have these long discussions. But where we're at right now is that we have borders and we have laws. And if you want those laws changed, then you need to do it peacefully and through the system. But if the system is not working, that, and you just want to break the law, break it, break it, break, then we're just going to end up in chaos. That's the point. Right now, the laws are on the book that I have to have a passport, that I have to have a green card, that maybe now in 2 weeks I can get a gold card, right? A gold card, right? That, you have to have a background check, that you have to be vetted, uh, everyone has to do that. Why is it for some people, but then for others, they can just walk in and they can demand all the rights. They can demand the Social Security that all the people that live in this country legally have been paying into with all their hard work, and now the whole system is going to fall apart and they won't get their Social Security. I mean, that's what they're saying now. They're figuring out the fraud that people with 120 years old were getting paid, and anyway, it's just crazy. But that that the system, because people that were in the country illegally were not were getting Social Security or were on Medicaid or whatever. You know, it, the way, because we have like a semi-socialistic with Medicaid and so, you have to have those border laws, those immigration laws. Like if you go to Germany, you get Kindergeld, right? You get money for your children. Well, I can just go over there with all my kids and say, "Give me money for my kids." But that money is reserved for the people that pay taxes for that system, that voted that in, that made that a law. So lawbreakers are destroying our system that we paying, through democracy, through voting it all. And even though we're a republic, but we voted these laws in. We wanted these social services, and but that's for the law abiding, or meaning those that are legally in the country. And that's the system we have right now. If we want open borders, then we need to change the laws and say no Social Security, no Medicare, no social services. You come into this country, you get the land, you work it, whatever you make. If you fail, you fail, whatever. There's no parachutes. There's no, social services to help you out. We need to change the laws then. But that's not how our system is right now. And all these cartels doing this trafficking, they don't pay taxes on those billions of dollars. Be it for the weapons trafficking, be it for the human trafficking, be it for the drug trafficking, be it for human organs. They don't pay any taxes on the money they make. And they're ruining our country. I do understand the screening process at all borders that have been lacking tremendously, in my opinion. Absolutely. Because that's what our law requires. So not to do it is to not go along with what the laws have been made, that have been put in place, require. You can't decide from one day to the next which days you're going to follow and which days you're not going to follow them. And who is forced to follow them, and who, oh, we can look the other way. And, this is what really is terrible with the Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, because she got the visas to come into this country. Her family got the visas to come into this country, and yet she still committed fraud. She committed fraud, and then to get money here illegally, loads of money. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars for her family. And then she gets mad when she gets caught or asked, not even caught, but even asked, and they even look into it. And she goes back to Mexico and says, we need to boycott America. Yet her son goes to UTEP. He went to UTEP. So they want all the benefits of the country without having to obey the laws of the country. I don't expect to go to Mexico and tell Mexico what to give me, and if I don't follow their laws, to say, oh, well, who cares? You can't do anything to me. That's called organized crime. That's called bullies. That's what this is. And it was those bullies, this organized crime, that did this terrible thing because they were scrutinized, and did the terrible thing with Richard because they were being scrutinized, and they wanted to keep their illegal activity that's tax-free and their law breaking for whoever they want their friends to be in the VA, in the Fort Bliss, in the arms room, at the federal courthouse, in the county courthouse, in the DA's office. I mean, you know, all the laws are negotiable. All the laws are negotiable and can be manipulated for personal gain at the expense of people's lives, at the expense of the economy, at the expense of elections, at the expense of the future of our country, our economy. And Joe Spencer is being featured. Joe Spencer, the most corrupt defense attorney in El Paso, is being featured in New York Times to affect elections, to affect the perception of the president's addressing the corruption of the cartels. And, it's the same playbook, because back then it was the Juarez cartel. He was trying to, the narco cartel groups. And I think they're still out. I don't know if I have a lot of questions, but I know now that he designated the Sinaloa cartel as that big T group, right? The T organization. When you don't want to belong to that, because then no one can do business with you, because it's aiding and abetting the worst type of group, right? And I don't know if I can say it. I've been told not to say it, but it's just like his actions are not racist or white supremacist. They are all to get this country to be law abiding and to dry up the organized crime, criminal activity. To dry up that criminal, that he's giving a chance to these criminals, or to those that compromise with the criminals to get their act together. To say, go get a different job and keep your nose clean. Stop it. Because it's going to get so ugly if they're allowed to continue. And that's Sinaloa cartels all over the United States. They're infiltrating in all of these systems. That whole business, the illegal business plan was working. It was working. And this is why you see the likes of such a corrupt defense attorney like Joe Spencer, who is an absolute liar, being featured in New York Times. And makes you wonder about New York Times, because this criminal organization is billions and billions of dollars. Who got into that game? Who is compromised? I can tell you right now, Representative Veronica Escobar is compromised. I can tell you that Judge Guadarrama is compromised. I can tell you that Michael Mayella is compromised, and Michael Mayella Jr. is compromised. I can tell you that Jaime Esparza is compromised. I can tell you that James Montoya is compromised. I can tell you that Priscilla Mata is compromised. I can tell you that Bill Hicks is compromised. I can tell you that every individual that's being an imposter judge on the El Paso criminal law magistrate court are compromised. They're all compromised. I can tell you that the county clerk is compromised. I can tell you, I mean, and I can say this on live because we have submitted the reports. We have submitted the evidence. We have the receipts, and we've already filed them. And it is needs to be shared and shared and shared, because you have the New York Times sharing lies. Number one, Joe Spencer didn't take this case. He was appointed. And that means people need to know that the payment did not come out of the Crucius pocket. It came out of every American's pocket. Their future, their children's future. And it's millions and millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. Now, you can say, oh, that's a drop in the bucket. It doesn't matter. Inch by inch. Inch by inch, they've got us in a pinch. They are getting millions of dollars for this, and they got millions of dollars for Richard's case. It's just total fraud, total cover up, total criminal activity. And the Walmart mass shooting was really, nothing makes sense except for that, you can fill in the blank. But Patrick Crusius surrendering twice, Patrick Crusius's inability to even tie his shoe, Patrick Crusius's, look at him in the courthouse. I mean, they have to do whatever they can to put on the show. They have to illegally put on prison clothes on him, almost starve him. He looks like, put chains on him. And I'm not saying he wasn't there. He absolutely was there. It's just interesting that, his family is in the federal courthouse. His family is the Mayellas that are close friends with Jaime Esparza, that are close friends with James Montoya, that are close friends with, Guadarrama. Let's all go to the wedding together with Joe Spencer, with Felix Valenzuela. Where are, there's no gag order right now. Where are the victims' families coming out? I mean, that's going to be very interesting. That's going to be so interesting when that comes out. And I hope that everyone does their research on that. Anyway, it's really the same old playbook. And this is why I have to come out and say this, because we need to get to the truth, and we need to get to the law, and we need to look forward to our country. And it's going to be destroyed if we let the likes of Joe Spencer spew from his spleen, right, with the lies, and blame Trump for something that is cartel tied, that was absolutely opposing President Trump, and President Trump was absolutely opposing. There was a war going on. There was a power war going on. And that's the truth. And whether every EO is right or wrong, there's never a president that is totally 100% right or wrong. But what it shows when you read through them is there's absolutely pre-August 3rd, 2019, plenty of motives for the cartel-tied organized criminal group network in El Paso to retaliate against President Trump. And the only way that they can do that is to affect public perception. That's the only way they can do that. And so the media becomes a very big player in all of this. And they're up to no good. Because no one told us, now, but at the beginning, when we called and said, hey, we haven't heard from our son, what's going on? Crying Yoshida, Captain Yoshida, that was crying, didn't say, oh my gosh, the ICE were all over Fort Bliss because Richard was reporting all the criminal connections, the cartel tie connections with Fort Bliss. And, it's been so crazy. And now, he's gone, right? He's been murdered. That's not what he said. They had a narrative, and they made a criminal out of Captain Yoshida. They made a criminal out of him, and they made a criminal out of the MPs, right? They made criminals out of them. Swafford, right? MP Swafford, lying on the guard mount, making criminals out of our MPs. Now, I don't like that future. I think these people need to be held accountable. Leilani needs to be arrested right away. Joe Spencer needs to be arrested right away. He needs to lose his law license. He needs to absolutely be held accountable for all of this. And so do the generals, and so do these individuals that have been entrusted with our institutions and our agencies to make a mockery out of them, to make a tied criminal network out of them for their own personal gain at the expense of so many lives and our country. It's treason. It's high treason. And it, and I am absolutely, I come from an immigrant family. I understand immigration. I understand. My mother learned how to drive in White Sands. She became a citizen of the United States while living in White Sands, White Sands Missile Range. She gave up her German citizenship so she could become an American citizen. Uh, Absolutely. Robert and Richard became American citizens in Delaware. That's where they became citizens of these United States. And I absolutely understand it. But there are laws, and we have to keep the laws, and we have to welcome people. My grandfather came in through Ellis Island. He was put 3 years in camp during World War II because he was a German. Him with some Japanese neighbors. Some German neighbors, some Japanese neighbors. They were put in the intern camp during World War II because he was a newly German immigrant, legal immigrant. 3 years. And he had accepted it. He said he was treated well. He accepted it. So um, I absolutely know about immigration, and my whole family is all about immigration. So, but it has to be legal. There's a difference between legal and illegal. And the narrative that New York Times was spewing, and what Joe Spencer, open check Spencer, the biggest corrupt defense attorney in El Paso, what he was, and I'm absolutely right saying that, and I'm being nice saying that, and I'm being nice, I'm being gentle saying that, and he is trying to affect our with our election with a false narrative, trying to do a hypnosis on the people with a false narrative, a divisive false narrative. Because I've been to a lot of countries, and I'm going to tell you, the United States is a melting pot, and we're very tolerant. I've been to most countries I've been to, they're not very tolerant. They want to be very exclusive. So, and I don't blame them. They want, you know, and so it's just a shame. It's just a shame. So I'm asking for everyone to share this information, and I will be back tomorrow with more. I have more audio drops that we're making, and more information coming out, that really there's so much, um, right, it all depends on the people understanding what was going on at the border and what's going on now and what they want. What they want. Do they want to be controlled by bullies that can shut down their economy, um, and shut down their small businesses and exploit children? Um, is that what they want? Or do they want law and order and what President Trump calls a golden age? And I think that's a good example because golden age, to me, means, law abiding with a system that works. It's golden. It's golden. The golden rule, right? The golden rule. I'm a teacher. We teach the golden rule. Do unto others what you would have them do unto you, right? The golden rule. That's what it means to me. And so to have that respect for other people, for the law is a golden age to me. And so people have to decide. And that means that if there's a murder in your family, like a murder in our family, that you can get justice, that you can get answers and accountability. And, the Walmart victims, they haven't gotten justice, they haven't gotten accountability because clearly, there are shooters at large. Clearly. And there's so many cases like that. So I think the people need to make a decision and, you know, that, and I'm going to try to get the truth out as much as I can because my choice is the golden age. My choice is the golden rule. My choice is accountability for what they did to Richard. That's that's our family's choice. So thank you so much. God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow.